Berenice, welcome back to Malta.
Thank you so much for having me.
You brought us some wines far away from Australia.
Yes.
So I will enjoy testing them later. You built a really good career in wine industry.
Yes.
It's been going on for many years.
Yes.
So can you give us take us back to the beginning when you started wine? What enticed you to go into this world of wine?
Well, it's going to show my age for sure, because I've been in the wine industry for over now 20 plus years. And practically I was visiting Tuscany during vintage, and I came across a small wine show, wine fair, wine tasting in Panzano, in a small village, and they had a Chianti Classico tasting. And I went there, I did this tasting, and I was like, wow, this is something really interesting. I really enjoy wine. I've never really thought about going into the wine industry till then. And and then I jumped on the plane back to Malta, and on the plane I opened the newspaper. Back then they still had newspapers, and I saw that the WSET courses at ITS back then were being held. So I applied for the intermediate course, and I started my journey in the wine industry. So started studying wine, and then first I got a job with a friend of mine, Tony, at Carnival Wines, mostly really pouring wines at restaurants and introducing the wines to customers. And then from there, I started working with Farsons. And I spent around 3+ years with Farsons, overlooking their portfolio of wines. And during that time, I had the opportunity to actually do vintages in Tuscany with Ruffino. I did my WSET diploma in London, and I also did vintage in Burgundy as well with Domaine de la Vougerie. And when I went to Burgundy, I was like, wow. When I was studying Burgundy, I found it so hard, so complicated, but when you live and breathe Burgundy, it's so much easier. So when I was in Burgundy, I came across the Masters of Wine Business course, which actually brought together my management degree here in Malta with my WSET diploma. So I was like, okay, this is a really good, interesting pathway for me. So I went to and did the MSc in Wine Business in Burgundy. And during that year, I learned a lot. I met lots of different people, and I also realized I had a lot of experience in Europe, with all my vintage work and everything, but I had very little experience in a new world country. And when I was working at Farsons, I was selling Yellowtail, which is quite a commercial brand, and I was also selling Clarendon Hills, which is a very high-end
brand.
So I was like, oh my God, between Yellowtail and Clarendon Hills, I'm sure there's a lot of wine, which is mostly drunk, most probably by Australians. So that's when I decided to go to Australia. Also, Australia is an English-speaking country, and I was going to Australia by myself, so it's safe for a young female to go to Australia, and therefore I just traveled there by myself, and I found a role at Coonawarra Wines in Coonawarra. And that's when where I did my research as well. So
you started at Coonawarra there?
Yes, I started in Coonawarra, which is a bit in the middle of nowhere, 4 hours from Adelaide, 4 hours from Melbourne. So I spent around 6 to 9 months living there.
So now we are back closer to Adelaide.
So McLaren Vale is around 40 minutes south of Adelaide. It's a quite unique region. It's surrounded by the ocean and the Mount Lofty Ranges.
So McLaren is known for these incredible wines. So
yes.
What it makes it so special, apart from what we said, it's between the ocean and the mountain ridge?
I think there's lots of things that make McLaren very special. I think the history, so it's actually dates back to the 1838, were the first plantings. I think the people who are living within McLaren Vale, there's lots of diversity, but most importantly is the climate. So it's a Mediterranean type climate, so you have the influence of the ocean, as I was saying, and also the different geologies which we have. So McLaren Vale has around 50 different unique geologies within a small area. There was a study recently made about these different geologies and soil types, and they can range from red loam soils to also limestones and to also deep sandy soils. So the sandy soils, we have realized over the years that they make really beautiful Grenache wines from these sandy areas. They're mostly up in the Blewett Springs area, so you have also different elevation levels within McLaren Vale. You have the sea view sites, you have the Blewett Springs sites, which are higher in altitude. So this diversity within the region also gives us the opportunity to diversify in wine styles as well.
When we talk about climate, you explain a bit that it's typical Mediterranean climate area. So hence, this experimentation would be mostly with Italian and Mediterranean wines. What I heard of the region, that you really had a phylloxera outbreak recent years, happening 20 years ago it started, and then it's just started widening up because the roots of the grapes locally were not really tolerant to phylloxera.
So actually McLaren Vale is one of the few wine regions within Australia that is phylloxera free. So we don't have any phylloxera within McLaren Vale. So we're quite lucky about that. So there's no phylloxera in the region. So all the vineyards are on own rootstock. Of course, this poses a threat, of course, to the region. So there is a lot of education happening, so that we don't, there's no trespassing in the vineyards by tourists, especially who are coming from other regions. So there are some regions within Victoria which are not phylloxera free. So therefore, it's easy to bring in phylloxera into the region. But so far, we've been very lucky.
It poses the risk if all the vineyards are on the old rootstock, then that means that you didn't start replanting on the new rootstocks yet. So
no, so therefore yes, it does pose a risk. So therefore, that's why as a region we are very aware of this, and we're always, have all our biosecurity also programs, and we're always informing people if they have been in other regions to stay away from the vineyards.
Which are quite close as well.
Yes.
Venomous snakes and spiders. How did you get to that?
Venomous snakes and spiders. They are all over Australia. So it's.
South is a bit reduced, though.
Yes, we still have one of the most dangerous snakes, which is the brown snake down in South Australia. So they're part of, everyday life. They really don't come close to you. You don't go close to them, you're fine. We are aware of them, and usually during vintage, especially when we are quite active in the vineyard, or of course the sounds would make them go away. So we've never had any issues really. Again, as part of our occupational health and safety, we have different standards, and we have also different courses that everyone does, and education, first aid, so that if something happens both in the winery and in the vineyard and at the cellar door, because the cellar door is part of the vineyard, therefore we are equipped to actually handle the situation.
You work with several top wineries in Australia. Most recently is Dandelion Winery.
Yeah.
So Dandelion Winery, Heirloom Winery and Sisters Rana Winery. Can you tell us more about your current role, about your roles in these wineries right now?
Yes, definitely. So I've been working with Dandelion Vineyards, Heirloom Vineyards and Sisters Run for the last 6 years now. There are 3 wineries which are family run by Elena and Zar Brooks. So Elena is actually originally from Bulgaria. She made her first Chardonnay at age 16. She fell in love with wine at the winery in Bulgaria, in Laskovitz. Her mom was the PR manager of the winery, and Elena was a young girl running around the winery. She was the only person around the time who was speaking both English and Bulgarian. So she was translating a lot for winemakers who came from Australia to actually work vintage. And that's where she fell in love with wine. And then at a very young age, she moved to Australia to do her enology degree. And she met her husband, Zar, and together they started Dandelion Vineyards, the 3 wineries actually around 2007. I've been working with Elena and Zara for 6 years, and I mostly look after sales and marketing for both domestic and also export markets. And yeah, it's been an amazing journey. It's I guess our company changed a lot. Our wineries changed a lot over the last 6 years. We're a much smaller team when we started, and now we also have opened a cellar door in McLaren Vale. So the Wonder Room cellar door is our cellar door. We welcome guests in McLaren Vale, and we do food and wine tastings. And then we also have the winery down in Malpass Road on McLaren Vale as well. And therefore our operations have expanded as well. We started with a very small team, and now we're a team of around 20 plus people. And we export to around 20 markets as well. So even though we're very strong domestically and we have really important distribution partners domestically, but we export across Europe, America and Asia as well.
But we still don't have your wines in Malta.
No, I'm still working very hard to get our wines in Malta. So I hope that we can find some important partners here in Malta. It would be a pleasure for me to, showcase our wines here, maybe host a couple of tastings for consumers and wine dinners. But I'm working on that. So hopefully very soon.
You connect both of the best thing. You come here for work and you come for pleasure to visit your family.
Exactly.
Which winery would you represent if you get them to Malta? Of those three, or all three?
Well, again, it depends on what the importer wants. The three different brands are quite different from each other. So Dandelion is really our core brand, which has a lot of single vineyard wines and is focused on Riesling, Chardonnay, Shiraz and Grenache, and mostly focused on McLaren Vale, single vineyard wines and Barossa. Our icon wines come in the Dandelion Vineyards range. Our icon wines come from the Eden Valley, so a cooler sub-region of the Barossa, and those vineyards were planted in 1912. So old vines for those two different wines. Whilst with Heirloom Vineyards, it's mostly focused on Adelaide Hills, so cooler climate. And we also focus a lot on different varieties like Touriga, Tempranillo, so a bit more out of the box. And then Sisters Run is more your everyday kind of wine, which you enjoy with family and friends on a daily basis, with pizza, pasta, or your favorite dish. So there are three different wineries with three different portfolios, and it depends on the importer what they're looking for to add to their portfolio of wines.
So I reckon that the Sisters Run is more fresh, newer wines, fresh wines, not aged Shiraz like it's available in Australia.
Well, I think with the three different wineries, again, the fresh approach is very important for us. All the wines really showcase beautiful acidity and lots of perfume. More on the medium body style of wines than the really full body style. I think Elena's winemaking is very elegant, and again really focus on perfume, acidity and structure, yes, but all in balance. We always, since she's Bulgarian and European like myself, we enjoy wine with good food and good company. So you don't want anything to really be out of balance when you're enjoying it with food especially. So for us, it's that seamlessness in the acidity and the tannin structure is very important.
McLaren as a region, it's, you say you're concentrating on the fresher wines. So you have those classical wines which you find in Australia, like Shiraz, Chardonnay, Viognier, Grenache as well. But then you are experimenting with Viognier, Vermentino, with Big Poo as well, that I heard. Nero d'Avola from Sicily, Sangiovese, Montepulciano. Tell me more about it, because that is something that is growing, wines that we are familiar of, but you're growing them on totally different terrain and totally different climate. I mean, similar climate but different place. Tell me how they come.
I think definitely. I think so. McLaren Vale is around 60% is planted to Shiraz. So Shiraz is still our main variety, but then we have Cabernet Sauvignon and Grenache are two other varieties which are very important for the region. But I think more and more we're seeing varieties like Picpoul, Vermentino, Nero d'Avola, Montepulciano, Tempranillo, Touriga being planted in McLaren Vale. And I think it's partly because of course, the winemakers want to bring something new, something a bit more fresh and a bit trendier as well. I think it really feeds into the consumer, what the consumer wants, and they are wanting these fresher styles of wines, definitely. Even though, having said that, Shiraz can be made in a really medium style as well from McLaren Vale. So in the heirloom range, we make a Touriga, for example, from McLaren Vale, and it's really, the consumers love it because it's a really beautiful red wine which has a medium palate. It has a beautiful blueberries, Earl Grey tea notes on the nose, and a really great structure as well. So it's, I think that more and more winemakers are experimenting with new varieties, and there are varieties which do really well in the Mediterranean climate, and therefore they're being planted more and more in McLaren Vale. And we're seeing more and more consumers are interested in these new styles of wines as well, of course. I do see a future for these styles of wines, even though I think still predominantly Shiraz will be still a main variety which we grow, together with Grenache. And really over the last, like in McLaren Vale, for example, we do this amazing tasting called the district tasting. So we actually subdivide McLaren Vale as a region into 19 districts. And we do a tasting of the different Shiraz from the different geologies. And it showcases how the different parts of the land really can be translated in the wines and the wine styles which we are making. So I do feel that Shiraz has still a great place in the McLaren Vale wine region, but also these emerging varieties, which of course makes our life a bit more interesting and intriguing.
One question that I had for you is, did you try to pair Maltese foods with Australian wines?
Ooh, I always pair Maltese food with Australian wines. You know why? Because my parents come and visit every year. And my mom loves cooking, of course, Maltese food when we're at home. So I have
It's too far away to pack you up, Bragioli.
Exactly, but she does cook Bragioli for us, Imaret, pastizzi. So she makes a lot of different food for me. So that's really nice of her. And I think Australian wines can actually really go with a variety of different cuisines. And certainly with Maltese food. I do like, to have jibainet, but the peppered one, with a nice glass of Shiraz, for example. It can go really down.
Spiciness with spiciness.
Spice with spice, pepper spice with spice, definitely. And there are other, like Grenache, I would definitely pair it with a nice rabbit stew. Definitely, because you have the beautiful structure of the Grenache with the fruitiness, still the red fruits, and the tomato sauce, which goes really, really well.
And Bragioli?
Bragioli, definitely. I think Bragioli, I would actually find a nice structured Cabernet Sauvignon with Bragioli. I think, and again, Coonawarra Cabernet Sauvignon is beautiful. It needs some time to age in the bottle, definitely, but you can have some really nice chocolate mint notes there and cigar box, and if they're aged beautifully, it goes really well with the Bragioli and those really nice tomato flavors.
Coonawarra is your first experience in Australia,
yes.
So I think you're still emotionally tied with Coonawarra wines.
Definitely, I love Coonawarra wines. I think there's definitely a connection there, and yes, you have to be patient to enjoy Coonawarra wines. I think they deserve their time in bottle before being opened and enjoyed, but they're definitely a unique part of the world and definitely a unique part of the Australian wine industry.
Is there Maltese restaurant in McLaren region? Or?
No, actually there isn't. But just recently, a Maltese chef has opened a restaurant in Barossa Valley. So her name escapes me, but she has opened a restaurant called Stagioni Seasons. So, and I haven't been there yet. So I'm actually when I return to Australia, I will definitely try her food. But there is also in Melbourne, there is a famous chef who has Maha restaurant, and he is he's very well renowned. He has 2 restaurants in Melbourne, and lots of Maltese people go there to enjoy his food as well. Of course, lots of expats.
When we are talking about Malta and Australia, how hard it was for you to adjust to the change?
It's, yeah, that's quite an interesting question to ask. I didn't find it that hard, like especially since I moved to Coonawarra. Coonawarra is a very small wine region, so I got to know the people very, very quickly, and they really embraced me as well. So embraced my accent and embraced my my diversity, which is great to see. It does take a long time to adjust, definitely, and I still miss home, I still miss family, but I think technology has also helped a lot. So, I call mom once a day, at least, and it's always so great to see, photos from family and friends posting on Instagram and Facebook. So it's really helped me still follow the lives of the people I love here in Malta, whilst living in a country like Australia. And of course, I've made lots of amazing friends in Australia. McLaren Vale is a very diverse, welcoming wine region as well. And the proximity to the beach as well has made me feel at home, because I just live like 2-3 minutes away from the beach. So that's very important for me. And of course, I have a lovely husband as well now. So I've been married for a couple of years. So yeah, so I think it's a combination of wine, food, family. Definitely, I miss Malta, but when I'm back here, I always feel at home still.
You mentioned that McLaren Vale is really open to tourism right now. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you won some awards recently. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes, definitely. So McLaren Vale has over 70 cellar doors now. So I guess the wine tourism in Australia is very different to Europe, at least way back when I was falling in love with wine. If you want to go and visit a winery in Burgundy or Tuscany or Bordeaux, you have to make an appointment. In Australia, it's very different. In McLaren Vale, we have cellar doors, which are unique concepts which offer both wine and food tastings. So our cellar door in McLaren Vale is called the Wonder Room, and we opened our cellar door in 2023. In May, and just recently in Verona, we have won one of the Best of Wine Tourism Awards for landscape and architecture. So this is a very important, of course, award for us, since it demonstrates how we really, like, our vineyard is a 60-acre vineyard converted into biodynamics and organics. And we build practically the cellar door on the footprint of an old tractor shed. So, but it was also Elena's vision to have a beautiful, welcoming environment, which is an extension of their home. So if you went to Zara and Elena's home, you would be welcomed by lots of wine, certainly food, and lots of good jokes and, chit-chats. So our environment, our cellar door represents just that. So you sit down, you have a tasting for around an hour of around 5 to maybe even 10 wines, depending on how long you want to stay, and depending on how much you want to eat. We also offer some food complimentary with the wine. So that's a very important part of our tourism experience in McLaren Vale.
And I assume there is a good accommodation nearby, so?
Yes, so accommodation, there is good accommodation in McLaren Vale. We're hoping to have more accommodation. There's some beautiful new accommodation just across from our vineyard, but also there's accommodation within the region and also at the coast. So there's some great accommodation around Port Willanga and on the coastline as well, Noldinga as well. And of course you have Adelaide is just 40 minutes away. So you can actually travel quite easily for a day trip as well. If you want to do a couple of wineries in McLaren Vale and in the Adelaide Hills, you can do that as well, because the Adelaide Hills is again just another 40 minutes away. So you can combine 2 different regions.
Then you have a full day of wine tastings.
Exactly.
You just mentioned the heirloom Grenache, that you got an award for it. These are unknown wines to Maltese region, so.
Yeah, Yes, definitely. So our Alcala Grenache from McLaren Vale, the 2022 vintage, got 97 points and a trophy at the Cantor World Wine Awards, which of course it wasn't the first trophy that Elena has won on the world stage. She has been constantly winning awards throughout her career, so it makes our wines very easy to sell, for me especially. But I think our both Dandelion and Heirloom Vineyards are 5-star wineries in the Halliday Companion, Wine Companion. We constantly receive great awards internationally, and we are constantly selling our wines internationally. One of our main wines in the Dandelion Vineyards range, the Lionheart of the Barossa, also flies Singapore Airlines and Korean Air. So really and truly, consumers can also enjoy our wines up in the air, and then when they arrive in Australia, they can come and visit us in the cellar door and enjoy our wines as well.
That's a nice idea, though. What about the sustainability? I know that you pay a lot of attention on being sustainable. Do you invest further into it? How sustainable your vineyards are?
Yes, definitely. It's a very important part of what we do as a region, as McLaren Vale, and also as a Dandelion Vineyards. So as McLaren Vale, we are the largest area under vine in Australia, which is sustainable. We have 40% of the vineyards which are now sustainable. And in McLaren Vale was the pioneer, was where the sustainable wine growing program in Australia has originated. So it's for us, sustainability and leaving less impact on the land is very important. And we also, as McLaren Vale, have the largest recycled water network in Australia as well. And this practically feeds our vineyards water from the households around McLaren Vale Township. So those aspects are really important for the region, but also as Dandelion Vineyards. When we purchased our vineyard in 2018 in McLaren Vale, we immediately started converting our vineyard into sustainability and also organics and biodynamics. Elena says she wants to be a lazy winemaker because therefore it means if you do the right by the vineyard, if you really invest time and money in the vineyard, and if you respect the vineyard, therefore there's less time needed in winemaking, and it's easier to really showcase the variety and the region in the winery when you're respecting the vineyard. We're firm believers that the best wines in the world, when you taste them, you actually can say which variety they're made from and which region they're made from. And if you can, that's what we aim to do, is to actually make wines which represent the region, the terroir, the climate, so that the consumer can say, okay, I'm drinking a glass of Adelaide Hills Chardonnay, I'm drinking a glass of McLaren Vale Shiraz, I know what it tastes like.
One thing I noticed that you have strange names for the wines.
Yes.
March Here, like Field of Wonders.
Yes.
Are those the names of the vineyards, or how the label came to be?
So that's quite interesting. That's all Zar, Elena's husband. He, I guess he's the marketing guru in the winery. And for Zar, wine is a way to escape everyday life. So the names are all coming from that concept that we want to escape everyday life. But then the Dandelion Vineyards as a name came back to, we go back to sustainability. Zara and Elena started their winery with a wine grower in the Barossa. And when they were looking at some vineyards up in the Barossa, I told her, oh, I really wanted to get rid of these weeds in the garden. And he was looking at picking a dandelion in the vineyard, and Elena said, no, if we are actually going to work together, we have to respect the winery. The ecosystem is very important, and that's where dandelion comes from. The Fields of Wonder, the Lionheart of the Barossa, the March Hare are all names that either come from are inspired by someone, like the Lionheart of the Barossa is inspired by one of our growers because he was a generous grower in the Barossa, or else they are meant to actually take you somewhere, like the Enchanted Garden Riesling is meant to take you to an enchanted place where you're enjoying your Riesling away from your everyday worries.
And when we are already there marketing. What are the challenges in sales and marketing right now that you're facing?
There's plenty of challenges in sales and marketing that we're facing, but I try to stay positive. I think the challenges are, of course, like anywhere in the world at the moment, there's lots of instability, politically and socially, and that impacts on the day-to-day business. There is also, of course, an oversupply, which we're dealing with, especially, well, globally, both in Europe and in Australia. And I think that also, of course, there's the changing landscape of regulations. So, like Australia has been impacted very harshly by the Chinese tariffs a few years back. So therefore, lots of people who really focus on one market, like China, then had lots of wines, in storage, which they couldn't sell. From our perspective at Dandelion and Heirloom Ancestors Run, we really try to keep a diversified approach and really work with our importing partners. I think, like anything, I think more importantly now is who you know and your relationships with those people. I think for us, having key relationships with our importing partners have helped us really grow sustainably and organically over the years. And I think if you have the right partners, you'll get far. So choosing those partners wisely is very important. But of course, you're always going to have fluctuations in trends, fluctuations in demands, which everyone is going to face. So yes, I think, but I always try and have a very positive outlook on the future.
Wine is very intimidating when somebody comes new to the world of wines. You need to know quite a lot just to have a good choice of wine. What is the best way that especially in Australia, that you would start off somebody new and entice them to come into the world of wines?
That's quite an interesting question. I think, yes, unfortunately, the world of wines can be a bit complex for people, for normal consumers, or for people who just want to enjoy a glass of wine on an everyday basis. That doesn't mean they have to learn everything about wine. And I think that sometimes we as the wine industry are a bit too serious about it, which I think we have to bring more playfulness, more more connection with especially with the young consumer. And having said that, just recently at Dandelion, we've made a decision to introduce a new wine into our portfolio, which is the Field of Wonders, which is a Chardonnay Spritzer. Because we feel that lots of the younger consumers are consuming more bubbles as wine, more low alcohol wines as well, and a bit of more the sweeter side. So I think having something within the portfolio that really brings in the consumer to enjoy something a bit more their taste, and then you can guide them through, okay, you have enjoyed this Chardonnay Spritzer, what if you try a Sauvignon Blanc? What if you try a Pinot Grigio? I think we have to be much more open to have those conversations instead of just saying, hey, I make Shiraz, if you don't like it, it's fine. I think gone are the days which we can just, this is what we make. You can have, of course, if you're a small winery, you can have that approach, and you can stick to that approach. But I think we have to really be more welcoming in the wine industry, and also maybe look outside the wine industry and see what other cues we can take into marketing on how we can attract more of the younger consumer into the conversation of wine.
Do you have still the wine tastings? Do you still go to the restaurants? Do you still present your wines locally in Australia? Or?
Yes, definitely. So we take different approaches, of course, into selling wine. So we work with main distributor in Australia, and definitely you still have to build those relationships with key accounts, with key restaurants, with key retailers as well to make your wine available. So those of course are steps which you have to take every day, and it's part of the sales strategy. But I guess having a home like our cellar door, where you are welcoming the consumer directly, makes it a bit more easier to also narrate your stories and really have this connection with the end consumer.
What is a wine moment in your life that you will never forget?
Oh wow, there's plenty wine moments in my life, I think, but I do think that the one moment that actually where I fell in love with wine, which is Panzano at the Chianti Classico tasting, is really something special for me, and I still feel that Tuscany is so special as a region to me, and hopefully one day I will retire in Tuscany in a small villa somewhere in the middle of nowhere. I'd love to do that.
And what is your favorite Super Tuscan?
Ooh, that's a very, very hard question to answer. I think I still will go with the classics like an Arnalaia or a Sassicaia.
I know that you answered this question with this Tuscany and you would like to retire there, but do you see yourself coming back to Malta in some near future?
I would love to. My perfect life would be 6 months living in Europe, and most probably spending some of the time in Malta, and 6 months living in Australia, and of course working in Australia. So that would be the perfect, balance of life.
What is the next in the line for you? Apart from this, trying to merge 6 months in Europe, 6 months in Australia, what is the next plan? What is the next step with these wineries or the wine world, all the work that you do?
Well, I think it's giving back. I think giving back is very important, and in fact that's why I've just joined the McLaren Vale and Tourism Association as a board member. I think it's the early stages of my kind of next stage. I think it's so important that I've found so many people who have helped me throughout my career, and who have helped me grow, and I've learned so much over the last 20 plus years. So hopefully I can start giving back to community, and start mentoring other people as well in the wine industry, and helping the wine industry go in the right direction.
So is there any advice that you will give to somebody who starts with the wine industry right now?
Well, definitely if you have a passion for wine, just go for it, and let nothing stop you. There is so much to explore, so much to taste, so much to enjoy, so many people to meet. I think the world of wine is so exciting. So yeah, I would encourage anyone to, if you enjoy wine, please go for it. And hopefully I can see you and all these people in McLaren Vale as well one day soon.
Thank you. Let's thank Zeris Restaurant for having us here in this lovely surrounding in Porto Masso Marina. Thank you, Berenice, for joining us today for this lovely insight in the world of Australian wines. And I hope that we will meet more often.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Cheers.